let's jump into how I did a quick and simple painting for Rocket Raccoon from Marvel United. So he's primed gray, and the first overall color I'm using is dark ivory. This is for like the fur, the lighter color fur on him. So I use Pro Acryl, and it's maybe slightly watered down or thinned down all over, just in the fur area. It's pretty simple. You may need to go 2 coats on this. The next area, I kind of want to get the inner parts, so I use burnt orange, and this is to cover the shoulder pads, part of his uniform. I think the next thing we're going to do is the brighter orange parts, but this is the just the shoulder and back portion. And for his pants, I put a little bit of red in the orange, just to, I didn't want it to be that vibrant orange, but it's also going to make the highlights, when we go with the bright orange highlights, really stand out better than if we just kind of, obviously if we went with the orange pants. So there's also the shirt portion for that. And of course with this, you're going to need a couple of coats. You want all your coats to be a good solid even color. So now we have that little rocket or bomb part, and I just use this bold pyrrole red all over. Again, real simple. Now for the basing, I'm doing this different than I did like in my group video, because there's so many little parts, and instead of trying to just paint in just the in-between rock parts with black, I'm going to kind of start from the bottom up. So paint everything that has like that underlying dirt. Like there's a lot of these, there's a portion of the base that has just a lot of the concrete on top of concrete, the little square, rectangular kind of pieces. You can see I'm kind of going around them here. But as you'll see in these next steps, we're going to go up from there with 2 or 3 different shades of gray. So now I've moved up from black to dark neutral gray, and I'm pretty much going to cover everything, or I am going to cover everything except for the bottommost, layer. I want to say dirt, but we're just using black. So just go over, all these, the concrete pieces, the small pieces, covering everything. Something a little larger to go over that. So yeah, cover all those concrete and rock pieces there. And again, I have a set of grays that I use for concrete, these neutral grays, and then I use warm grays for my metallic. So I actually have my bottles marked for concrete or metal. So the next color up is just the neutral gray. And this is where we start putting some of the highlights, those comic style highlights in. So I'm not trying to blend them down. I just want, I call it a stark or a bold highlight. So not worried about blending those in. So just hitting the top part of like this rock here, and we'll have one more highlight on top of that. So you want to make sure it covers enough so that we can put a smaller highlight on top of it. And don't worry about going all the way down. So just a quarter, maybe a half. Anytime there's little nicks or cuts in the rocks, I go around that so that that dark neutral gray can show that depth. And now we have the last highlight for the concrete and broken rocks here, which is a bright neutral gray. So just hitting, just making that I guess pop, whatever, with the highlights. Wanting my highlights to be fairly round, not a lot of jagged edges. I kind of try to smooth this one out, as you'll see, just so that it has those round kind of highlights. So there we go. We did this one a little different. I want to go ahead and finish up the base to kind of pull it all together. And again, all my heroes, I put a blue rim on it, and my villains, I go with red. So now we're going to start with some of the other base coats. So I use a dark umber for the dark rings on Rocket's tail. I'm going to stay in the umber, so I'm going to use dark and light umbers. There's also, you'll see on your model, there's a mold line that goes across his face, so I kind of use that as a line there. So the top part of his face, hair, fur, there's little spots in his ears. I wanted to give it some depth, and of course his nose. There's also, if you look at the card art, his feet, kind of how his paws or toes, raccoon toes are. So just kind of make those little triangular shapes there. And, you'll see that. So now I'm using just a regular ivory for some highlights, some of the are the lightest portions of fur. So we have his eyebrows and I guess around his ears, the front part of his ears that we have there. Make sure with everything on this model, there's a lot of symmetry. So whatever you want to do on one side of his face or his tail, the gun. I'll show you one, and then we kind of go from that. Also, the top and sides of his nose. If you look at the card art, he does have that lighter fur. Maybe it's signs of an aging raccoon. He's starting to gray. So now this is all my blacks are going to be Vallejo model color black, and just going. It's not so much a shadow around his eye. Maybe it is, but it's kind of to set up to I don't know if it's to draw the focus or to just have some more contrast when we fill in that eye. So it's actually, I believe, I remember it is sculpted in there like around the eye, so you have an area to go around. If you have the model, in your hand you'll be able to see that. So this is just a size 1 brush. Just go with that, and just take your time using just the tip or the end of the brush. You do have to, we're using acrylic paint that dries fast, so you do have to kind of hit it fast. So then I'm just filling in the eye area with ivory, the same ivory that we were highlighting, and then we'll draw in his pupil a little bit. And if you paint too much, overstep it a little bit, that's fine. Let it dry, and then just kind of clean it back up with the black. So now we're going back with that Vallejo black, and we're just hitting, this is like his gloves. I know I go back and I do the pistol grip on the weapon as well with black. You could do a gray on that as well. So you'll just see some of the areas that I'm just going, all black. Some of these recessed areas that are kind of going to be filled in. I do a little bit of black lining after we paint in the shadows and highlights on the weapon, but this is just areas that are going to be filled in, and I do this step first before I go over the weapon with the gray that we're going to use, because some of those recessed areas will kind of overflow, and we'll be able to cover them up. Some of the other areas are like the bottom of his pants here that you see, like the cuff that we'll cover. Also remember, he has 2 hands, as all raccoons I guess do. So it's kind of underneath there. So just a few areas, those little recesses underneath the scope on the gun as well. And on the back, you can kind of see them right there. Just some of the recesses in there, kind of get that first. Now I'm going to go over the whole weapon with warm gray. I use my warm colors for highlighting. I only use 2 of the warm grays. I don't use the dark gray, the dark warm gray on this metal. I actually just use a black for that. So just going over all these areas, and then we'll put the black and whites in there to give it some highlight and depth to it. So just cover the whole thing here, and this is what's going to allow you to cover up areas like right there where those 2 little slots are. I'll be able to clean that up. There's also this wheel or a handle. I just kind of put some highlights on that. It's a very small detail, but it is in the front. I wanted to give it some character and some depth as well. There's that, I don't know, a shock or piston, I don't know, something there, some mechanical part. Wanted to hit that, and I believe we're also going to hit that coil right there. Yeah, so we're just going to go over that. I wasn't too worried when I painted it, some of that red overlapped on it. And this is that his backpack life support or something there. It's as you can see, like in the graphic at the bottom left of the screen, that gray looks real dark, but it's not. Obviously, you see me painting it on. It's a very light gray, even though it's just considered gray. I do go over. I use the dark warm gray to go over the other end of that missile rocket thing that he's standing on top of. We're going to put some simple highlights on that, but I wanted to make it something different. A different metal, metallic, color. Then we're going to do the his gun. So just overall coat with dark warm gray, and we'll put a couple of highlights on that here in a moment. So here's where we start, kind of one of the more important parts, maybe for technique or learning. It's how to, it's not a non-metallic metal, it's more of a comic style metal. So we have that gray, and this is just a pure white, bold titanium white. And we're kind of making some highlights, and then we'll take the black and I get highlighter, we're just going to put those next to the white and create that illusion of metal, comic style metallics here. So just real simple, these are just straight lines. You'll see me turn and flip the model around, because I don't want to try to, I'm just moving my hand in one direction, but I can manipulate and move the model around so that, it looks different on the model. So I'm just making straight lines. I'm just holding the model differently. I don't have I don't know the proper, physics of comic style highlighting. I just look at a model, kind of, I look at the card art, I look at the model and try to mimic that, whereas with traditional style, highlights are on top and shadows are on the bottom, but for the, some of these highlights and shadows, I just, put them next to each other. I'm sure there's some great videos out there that explain that much better, and with, better reasoning as to why a certain highlight goes, one place. Like, I was thinking about that when I was painting this, the side of this weapon. I'm like, well, usually shadows would be at the bottom, but it's flat for one, and I'm like, well, it just looks better on the top or bottom, of some of these white highlights, acrylic type paint. So here we go. I'm just, again, highlighting, shadowing these white accents or highlights that I'm putting on here, just, to make them stand out and give it that two-dimensional look that we're trying to produce. reproduce here. This one right here, this is simple. These are recesses in the magazine area there. So this will give you an idea of how, it's very similar to how we did the rocks or the busted concrete, or this area right here. So we have the dark warm gray at the top, and then we go here with just the normal warm gray on and around the rocket, and like right there, the little pedestal square area. Again, these the comic style highlights are, usually like round highlights. Nothing's very sharp on these highlights to give it, I don't know if I want to say a soft look, but it is, something simpler. And then our final highlight on this area is the bright warm gray. Again, that round highlight, I guess, gives that illusion or that sense of the roundness that's there. It just really sells the idea, of a highlight there. Just going around all those areas that we had the warm gray on in just a smaller area. These little vent fan blade areas here, just something to, it's a small detail, but we just want to highlight it for it to stand out. And that goes for this cable area right here, and then just jump in and put the black shadows in there to give it that depth. So while I had the black on my palette, I went ahead and wanted to do the black lining. So this is, to me, the most enjoyable part of the painting. You're just filling in the crevices or the lines, creating that separation between usually two colors. This area right here, it's just a black line in between the red. That's because it's actually sculpted, that depth. Then I'm just going around all the edges, and I put in, as you see, like these little black low lights, highlights, whatever, shadows. Again, just to help it stand out and create that illusion. So anywhere there's a sharp change of areas like the rocket to this rock, just highlight that. And this also, as you may have noticed, like whenever I do some of the colors, I'm not worried about how neat it is because I know the black lining will cover it. So then we're just doing a real simple, bold, roundish comic highlight on this rocket with pure orange. And this is again, how much, I just kind of go with the overall shape of that area, like this little round area here. Have the black on my palette, so I'm just gonna, after I let that dry, and with this orange, I know I put at least 2 coats on each of those areas. But yeah, just small little black lining on this highlight so that it would stand out as well. Kind of, again, give that illusion of the comic style look. So now we're going to start some of the highlights and shadows for Rocket's fur, and I'm using light umber on these areas that we had dark ivory on. So again, the darker rings are dark umber, and so now we're using light umber for the shadows for the lighter parts, and it just gives a little continuity in the colors. Whatever paint brands and colors you use, you can kind of stay in that same area, or if you're mixing paints, that way you're staying with ivories instead of, to mix with your browns instead of whites and stuff, so it kind of keeps it all there. So we're just painting in our shadows for the underneath portion, but it's not like completely underneath. I want it to be seen as the model is on the table. So that shadow kind of runs up the side some, still giving the illusion of a shadow, but it's kind of a little higher up. It's not completely underneath. So just going, hitting the under areas of the tail, and then the highlight is just ivory, regular ivory, on top of the dark ivory of the fur. So again, just these bold, rounded edged highlights and shadows. So I just hit those areas there. I put a highlight on top of Rocket's head. Again, it's just a bold highlight. His feet, ankle, top of his foot, the muscles on his arms as well. So while I had that, some of the orange on the palette, I'm just kind of painting in the irises for Rocket, and then I use some of that light umber, so there's both orange and brown there. And these are just the smallest little dots. Just use the fine point of your brush, and if you need to clean it up, there you go. Also using a pure orange highlight on Rocket's jumpsuit, and since we did add a little bit of red to the orange when we painted that, these highlights can just be done with simple orange. And that goes for the shoulder pads that we painted with burnt orange. We'll highlight. Of course, we need to paint the inside of Rocket's mouth, and I'm just using my red, bold red. His teeth, I'm not sure if I had this on video, but his teeth are sculpted in there. I'm just painting again with white around his mouth, just to highlight the fur area there. I don't think the ivory was bright enough. So we're going back and we're doing some of the final black lining. So anytime there's two different colors touching each other, as we got his arm and the jumpsuit or the little backpack, power pack here, you want to separate those with a black line. This just gives that like a bold statement, that really makes you think it's comic style. Just some regular black line details here for his eyebrows and on his face, and then there's a few areas on the weapon that there's just some gray areas, and you want to hit that. Now with this dark umber on the tail, sometimes it's hard to see, but it does stand out. So you just go around the whole thing, separating each of the rings, going around. You see my hand's a little shaky, probably just had some coffee or something there. So sometimes black lining's easier on some days, the back of his neck here, separating the fur from the orange. You really I go around the model. Sometimes I have to look at it once or twice. Final steps here, putting that black line inside the weapon. I didn't show it on video, but I did use a couple of light colors blue to show the power generated there. Well, I hope this helped. I have a few other comic style videos, and I'm going to do a shorter version of painting these. The next one up will be Gamora as I go through the Guardians of the Galaxies here from Marvel United. I hope this video was helpful. It'd be helpful for me if you liked and subscribed to my channel for more painting videos for Marvel United, Age of Sigmar, and Middle Earth strategy board game. Have a wonderful day.